Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fifth in a series of webinars on food security in the Bahamas. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and it's a tremendous pleasure to have you all here with us today. This has been really a very encouraging exercise. As most of you who have been with us since the very first webinar know, this was sort of started on a whim. I just decided while we're all in lockdown and everybody's concerned about food security, what better time than now to talk about what we need to do to make sure that we can feed ourselves in times like these and even in great times. We've been importing, as you all know, over 90% of the food that we eat, and that just is not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. And so one good thing that came out of COVID-19 is it's forcing us to take a look at our reality. And one of our realities is that we really have to begin to feed ourselves and to be responsible for the food that we put into our bodies. So that is why and how this webinar series started. And to date, we have over 450 people who have registered to be a part of these webinars, and the numbers keep growing. And we've been getting word that we have people who have logged on from all over. We've had people on from throughout the Caribbean, throughout the United States. I think we've even had some as far away as Africa who have signed in and been a part of these webinars. So I'm really, really just blown away by the support. And I thank you all so much for agreeing to be a part of what we're doing here. So these webinars are being sponsored by Youngevity, Bloom Minerals, and Liquid EFM. And for those of you who are new to the webinars, we will be showing throughout the course of this meeting videos from our sponsored company. And what they do is you can call them a mineral company. They're all about teaching us how to be healthier, how to live longer, how to reverse illness, both in humans and in animals, and yes, even in crops. And so they have a line of agricultural products that replenish the soil with minerals, and as you'll hear today, can also be used on animals to help those animals to be healthier and live longer, more productive lives. And so without further ado, I'm going to actually begin this a little differently than I have been doing in the past. I'm actually going to begin this particular episode of the webinar with a short video from our sponsors, just to introduce you to the man who brought Youngevity to the world and the passion that he has for helping us all to become healthier. His name is Dr. Joel Wallach, and I will briefly tell you a little bit about his story. Dr. Wallach grew up on a farm, and as you farmers know, particularly the farmers that we're talking to today, because today it's all about livestock, as he put it, you can't, farmers aren't going to pay for medical insurance for their animals. And so they had to figure out a way to ensure that their animals would maintain good health. And they thought to come up with a concoction of vitamins, minerals, just a bunch of good stuff to feed to the animals to keep them healthy. Not only were the animals healthy, but he realized that they were reversing illness in their animals. And he, as a boy, had a disability. He had a terrible twitch in his face. He also used to grunt and make weird noises. And his parents took him from doctor to doctor, and they couldn't figure out what in the world was wrong with this boy. And finally, they told him that, they told his parents that, you got to just live with it. He has a disability, and there's nothing he can do. Long story short, he asked his dad, well, if the vitamins and minerals are working for the animals, why aren't we doing this for ourselves? His father dismissed him. Said, boy, go and sit down and eat your peas. But he snuck into the farm one day, and he started secretly eating the farm animals' food that had all of the nutrients. And within 2 weeks, he had been healed of his disability. And so as a boy, he figured out that it's all about nutrition. Long story short, he went on to create Youngevity. He has a degree in agricultural science. He's a former veterinarian. He's a naturopathic doctor, a former pathologist who's done thousands of autopsies on animals and humans. And he has discovered that over 900 diseases result from nutritional deficiencies. So there's a documentary that has been produced about his life called The Audacity of Health. And I'm just going to play a quick video that served as the trailer for that particular documentary.
If something is false, he calls it out, even if it means alienating the entire medical community. He doesn't care. He cares about the truth.
Marlon Perkins put my father on this path early on. That's ultimately what led to my father making the discovery many, many years later of cystic fibrosis.
I was excited to help kids with cystic fibrosis. And they fired me.
He's never been tied to a certain set of research or a food company or a drug company or the dollar. He's just been committed to his heart and what he knew.
They would actually follow us and hand out petitions, and they actually had people arrested. It was quite the fight back in the early days.
He's not going to be stopped by the FDA. No one wants to take on the FDA. No one wants to go through that battle.
I've seen my father deal with a lot of blows that would cause most people to just curl up in a ball and quit.
I don't care if he gets knocked down another 20 times. He will get up that 21st time.
I give lectures all over the world. People every month come up to me and tell me how I saved their lives, how the information saved their mother, how it saved their kids. You cannot pay for that. You cannot pay for that. That's worth everything.
For us, it's all about spreading the word that every human being needs 90 essential minerals, nutrients, vitamins, amino acids, essential fatty acids every single day of our lives. And one of the things that Bloom Minerals and Liquidity FM does is it replenishes the earth, which has been so depleted of minerals. It replenishes the earth so that whatever grows from that earth, and as you'll learn today, the animals that consume these products thrive. We're talking drastically increased yield, and you're going to hear more about that throughout this webinar. So today we are focusing on livestock, and I am really, really thrilled to introduce our first speaker. I would like you to virtually welcome Andrew T. Pinder, who is the Assistant Director of the Department of Agriculture and is responsible for livestock production and is a husbandry practitioner.
A pleasant good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me to come and share on this webinar today. My focus would be looking at livestock production in the Bahamas and some of the initiatives and programs that the ministry through the Department of Agriculture has ongoing to assist with livestock production and in turn food production in the Bahamas regarding livestock. Okay, so what is livestock? Livestock basically is farm animals kept for use or profit. This includes for use as meat, milk, fiber, leather, and types of meat. Meat products would be pork from pigs, beef, and the likes, egg. Types of livestock in the Bahamas. We have beef and dairy cattle, we have swine, sheep and goat, as well as poultry. The importance of livestock, the first point is it's important for food security. And today, in today's world, with all the talk about COVID-19, food security is a very topical conversation. And so we look to livestock for sources of meat, milk, and egg as a protein source. The second point is livestock is a means of employment. Direct employment on the farm, as well as indirect. It's a means of saving foreign reserves. Like you mentioned, over 90% of what we consume is imported, which means that we're sending out a lot of the currency that we generate. And so if we're able to increase our production in livestock, then that will in turn reduce the amount of foreign reserves that is sent out to import different products. Livestock can also be a source of biofuel. It can be used as a fertilizer. It's important in our culture, Junkanoo. with our goatskin drums and our regattas, our homecoming. It's also has an important role in the Bahamas in terms of socioeconomics. It's been an important contributor to the development of our rural communities, mainly our family islands, where it's been a main source of food and economic activity. So just here's some numbers. They need to be updated, but direct employment is just under 5,000 or 3% of the labor force. And contribution to GDP is less than 1%. In terms of the government's ongoing livestock programs, we have at the Gladstone Rural Agriculture Center, a national swine breeding center that I'll talk about a little bit more later, a small ruminant demonstration program. We also operate a feed mill that manufactures feeds for livestock. The government also operates an abattoir on Farrington Road that's responsible for the slaughtering and inspection and safety aspect of meats that are slaughtered locally. They also provide a business advisory service through the Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation, also called BAIC. And then we have BAMSI, which is one of the newest initiative in the Ministry of Agriculture that focuses on educating young people as well as mature persons, as well as they have a farm that demonstrates crop and livestock production. The national program also includes extension services in animal husbandry as well as veterinary care. And then there's access to crown land for use in agriculture. In addition to having access to those land, they also offer direct assistance with the clearing of those land, as well as preparing the land for crop and livestock production. Some of the government policies to support the sector that are currently in place would be an agriculture credit scheme in terms of importing supplies and inputs you need. You're able to get duty-free concessions on all your imports. You have business license fees at concessionary rates. In terms of protecting the sector, that there is provision to put tariffs on imports to make local production more competitive. There's a plan to expand abattoir facilities to Grand Bahama and the major family islands in the very near future. And this is important to giving farmers on those islands greater access to the market. The meat, the animals that were slaughtered would be inspected, and so there's a level of safety. We have a national emergency food program where the initiative is to make up to 30,000 backyard garden kits to assist with food production at the household and the community level. And then at the farm level, there's a plan to introduce technology in crop production that deals with hydroponics and vertical growth systems, and those would be important to reduce cost of production, increase the yields from those operations, as well as to extend the growing season for various crops. And then we have a chicken layer program where the plan is to distribute 15,000 layer chicks to farmers on most of the major family islands. In addition to getting the chicks, they'll also get assistance with feed and equipment to support table egg production. Now at the Gladstone Rural Agriculture Center, the objective of the livestock section is to assist with the development of livestock production in the Bahamas. And one role that we play in doing that is we are a breeding center for both pig and small ruminant herds. And the objective of this center is to import improved breeds of pig and small ruminant sheep and goat, multiply those stock and make them available to farmers at reduced prices. And we also demonstrate technology and husbandry practices. The second role is as a demonstration farm. So farmers, students, and the general public can come and see how a commercial farm for pig and sheep and goat would look. We demonstrate housing designs that are recommended for local production. We also demonstrate husbandry practices and breeding, record keeping, health care, as well as feeds and feeding. We demonstrate equipment that farmers should seek to use in their operation to assist. We have pennings, we have harvesting equipment that will improve the collection of forages. We also demonstrate improved technology with the use of improved pasture seeds and management that is designed to encourage the animals to grow and to be more productive. The third role is we provide technical assistance. So we assist farmers through extension services where we go and visit their farm and provide advice on technical assistance on how they can improve their operation. We also offer an informal voluntary training program where persons who would like to come to the Gladstone Rural Agriculture Center and participate in the daily activities of the National Swine Breeding Center or the small ruminant unit, they can write a request into the director, and once approval is granted, they'll be able to come in on a daily basis, voluntary, and get hands-on experience on those operations. We also assist with reviewing project proposals for new and existing farms. We see ourselves as a resource center where we assist persons in where they can find services and supplies that are required for their operation. And I plug in BAMSI there because while it doesn't come under the Gladstone Agriculture and Livestock program, they offer similar experiences where they demonstrate improvement in housing and breeds and management, and that facility is located in North Andros. The fourth role is doing adaptive research. We evaluate the findings of research on conventional practices in our environment. And one of the ones we have is a breeding program for pigs, where it's a three-way cross, and it was mirrored from the National Breeding Program of Taiwan, where we use Landrace and Yorkshire as our maternal lines, and then we cross them back to either a Hampshire or a Duroc as terminal sires to produce a Landrace, Yorkshire, or Hampshire pig that is known to grow very fast and have very, very good meat quality. We also do adaptive research in our housing designs and penning. We use slatted flooring in small ruminants as well as our nursery and farrowing facilities, and it's designed to create a more sanitary environment, more comfortable environment for the animals to thrive and be more productive. In terms of forages, some of the grasses that we are doing work on would be the mulatto 2, Mombasa, sorghum, cayman, Sriracha, as well as the gamalame. In terms of feeds and feeding, we use conventional as well as non-conventional feeds. And in the past, we have done some work with poultry offal hydrolysate, where we will process the waste from a poultry slaughter facility and produce a liquid protein source for feeding to pigs as well as poultry. I'm going to go kind of quickly. Okay, types of livestock operations at graph. We have a pig operation with 4 breeds and their crosses. Sheep, we have 7 breeds, and crosses. Goat, actually 5, and they're crosses. And we also have a couple head of cattle. In terms of pig talk, I'm going to go through that. I'm just going to skip through that. Those are just some of the terms that, as I speak, will kind of let you understand what the meaning the meaning is. Okay, in terms of the National Swine Breeding Center, this would be a photo of farrowing house. And farrowing really is the process of the pig giving birth. And at the top slide is showing a sow with a litter of pigs. And basically it's designed, the penning is designed to confine the sow to an area and allow the pigs to be able to move around. And that is designed to minimize crushing, which is a major cause of mortality during the first 2 weeks. It also has the slotted flooring, so it's dry. And we also have supplementary heat source. So if you look in the center, you see design that basically you have pens on both sides. It's a 20 firing crate unit. Okay, the second slide shows the gestation penning. And gestation really is the pregnancy period. And in pigs, the gestation period is 114 days. We refer to it as 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. And the top photo is showing the gestation building. And when we designed it, it is designed. The purpose was to demonstrate 2 types of penning. In the center, you would see what we call gestation stalls. They're 2 feet by 7 feet. And the pigs are individually penned. And on the left-hand side is what we call a communal penning, where we would put multiple pigs in one pen. And so we try to demonstrate both a total confinement and a partial confinement system in this operation. Okay, this would be a photo of our nursery facility. Again, we use slotted flooring, meaning a wire, so all the waste would go to the ground away from the animals, keeping it sanitary. And we also provide supplemental heat to keep them warm. If they're warm and dry and have access to a good quality of feed, you could literally watch them grow. All right. Okay, I'm gonna go through I'm gonna just slide through this. This basically is giving some information on the management system, the herd size. The piglets stay with the mother for 28 days, and then they're weaned, and this gives some more information on the 4 breeds. Okay, this will be the first breed, the land race. They're known to be good mothering ability, large litter, large frame, and they're characterized by a nice big floppy ears that come over the eye. This would be the Yorkshire breed. It's another white breed. The major difference is the Yorkshire have a dish face and a more pointed ear. These would be paternal lines. The Duroc and the Hampshire, they're known to grow very fast, have good marbling for meat quality. Okay, so in terms of small ruminants, a ruminant basically is an animal with a 4-compartment stomach, and they're classified as being meat type, dairy type, and dual purpose. They're basically herbivores, and they're characterized as small, meaning sheep and goat. And then the sheep and goat can be classified as hair or wool type. And then the large ruminants would be cattle, and they're all free ranging. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there and leave it for questions. This is just a demo. Go ahead.
Actually, the question and answer segment will be after all of our presenters have had an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Pinder, for sharing. So before we introduce our next speaker, I'm going to play another video from our sponsor, And this video talks about the impact of blooming minerals and liquid EFM on cows. So just take a listen to this.
Okay, dairy. One of the first dairy farmers I had success with keeping good records is Mr. Hostetler from Athens, Wisconsin. And this is some of the results he had. Matter of fact, in Wisconsin, if you have your somatic cell count in your dairy go above 1 million, you get a letter from the cheese companies warning you. The second letter, second warning, and the third letter you get, they will call your herd. In other words, they will come in and force you to sell your herd to slaughter. Because high somatic cell count will not give you a good quality cheese or dairy product. And so when I first met him in February of 2011, his somatic cell count was over 600,000. In 8 months' time, by feeding blooming minerals, we were able to bring it down to 160,000. Also, he had a 50% infertility in his dairy herd. Completely eliminated, eliminated infertility. We eliminated all that third trimester abortions and stillborns. We also increased butter fat, went from 3.8 to 4.6, a 17% increase in butter fat, and 20% increase in protein in the milk. Now, what this did for Mr. Hostetler is that it brought his milk to a premium quality milk, which he was now getting a premium price for the milk. Premium price for the milk. And we figured it out. For every dollar he invested into the blooming minerals for his dairy, he is getting $1.29 back, or $1.27 or $1.29 back in milk premiums alone. That was not considering the savings in veterinarian bills, increased milk production. One thing he said that during the summer months, the heat of the summer months, typically the milk production drops off. He did not have that happen.
I was just corrected by Mr. Pender that I should have said cattle and not cows, so forgive me for my ignorance. Remember, I'm not a farmer, folks. I'm just facilitating the conversation. So there you have it, the impact of blooming minerals on cattle. And so my next presenter has really gone through hell and back. She is a farmer who is based on the island of Abaco. And I am sure that that's all I have to say in order for you to figure out where I'm going next. And during the passage of Hurricane Dorian, she lost 80% of her livestock, crops, and equipment. And she also was injured terribly in that storm, but thank God she made it. And she's now slowly rebuilding a farm. And in this presentation, she's going to talk to us more about the vulnerability of farmers in a hurricane zone like the Bahamas, and what can be done or what should be done to assist our farmers to be able to better manage or better handle inevitabilities like hurricanes or other natural disasters. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Vashti to the webinar. Welcome, Vashti, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this discussion.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to just thank God that I'm here, and I'm glad to be a part of this webinar with a bunch of great farmers and a great people that are showing interest in feeding our country and abroad. During Hurricane Dorian, of course, I got injured. That's when the roof and all of the hardy boards was falling from the roof. So I did fall. I slipped running from the roof to save my 3-year-old, running with her. And I tore the disc in my back, and it's bulging, and I cracked a bone in my neck. And long story short, when we did get to evacuate, the only thing I could have done, because my farm was not in town, I was in the Marsh Harbor area, central area, where I was living in my home, and I only could have passed my farm going. When I came in, I spent a day that Thursday, because we were waiting for water to get down, to evacuate. At that time, I didn't feel the injury because I guess the adrenaline was, still hot. When I got to my farm, I had my workers here, and when I saw the water line, I had like 4 feet of water on the farm. Now, we're not talking about right in Marsh Harbor where we expected it. No one expected that I'm not too far from the chicken farm. So we didn't expect water to be way out here, during that time. And when I came, the water started to subside. During this hurricane, I was preparing for high winds. I've never dreamt of having flooding on my farm. And like I say, I'm way in town and I'm pretty far from the water. But there are swamps that's not too far around me. And when I came, all of the animals that I had bunkered down, I had the small ruminants, the little chickens and the goats and the guinea pigs and rabbits and those type of small stuff. I had a whole lot of them. I had them bunkered down underneath the stilt house, protecting them from, the high winds. And they all drowned underneath there because we had 4 feet of water. So everything was underneath there I lost. The goats, they were still free to roam, but the smaller ones, they drowned because there was nothing for them to get up on. So I lost all the pigs and the goats. During a hurricane like that, when you really didn't, that was like, it's like kind of hard to predict what was going to happen. And I hope we don't see them type of, hurricanes again. So preparing for a hurricane, we've been used to a lot of winds as usual and some rain. But now that things have changed, I guess we have to prepare now for a lot of flash floodings. And the assistance that I think would help a lot of us now going forward is, had I had higher ground, or maybe I would say a mountain, they would call it like a mountain with corrie or something that they can go up to and elevate themselves somewhat. That a lot of us farmers don't have. So now we need to find some place, not only that we can secure them, but now we need to look for higher grounds, because for years we've been looking at, securing them and batting them down, strapping them down. So now we have floodings that we're looking at now in this new age. The assistance that some of us can have is, we call it a task force. I would say maybe a task force where you have a selected group of farmers who voluntarily, there's a hurricane coming, and you can assist that person. Before the hurricane, I had the challenge of securing a whole lot of animals. And by the time we got the warning, there was no one there to help me to secure those. So I spent a lot of time trying to take the smaller rabbits and everybody out of their cages and put them. If we had a task force where maybe a group of 10, they can come to me that Tuesday, and the next day we go to the next person and help one another during that time. Or let's say if there's a particular thing I need help with, then I could say, just like how you have the fire helpers and they volunteer, in that same thing, we could use that for when we need to secure stuff during a hurricane, as well as we could use that same group for the aftermath. Because after aftermath, you have sometimes you lose a lot of animals. In my case, I had a whole lot of them that had to be buried and come out of cages. And for farmers, losing animals is almost like losing, you lose like someone, especially if you've watched that particular animal grow up around you, and it's a sacrifice from all of us. So that's a hard thing for us farmers too. None of us wants to lose. So, but that happens. We live in a hurricane zone, so every year, we are faced with this. But we are strong farmers here in the Bahamas, so we rebuild and we keep on going. No matter how hard we get hit, we look for tomorrow, for the sun to move. So having this task force in place can help with chainsaws. I had a lot of fallen trees. All of my equipment went underwater. No one had equipment here. So even if, maybe the agriculture or some other persons have those type of items that you would need in the event of the hurricane, there are hands-on that you can get right away. So the task force then has, whether it's a stipend they pay, and then you can invest in the things that you particularly need. Like chainsaws is something you needed right away to get trees down, and you need ropes and you need tarps. So if you do have animals and you don't have cages, then you could probably get piloted and put tarps for them to secure them. You need, water, fresh water. In our case, all of the water was salt around my pond, so I couldn't give them that on my farm because of the water. So fresh water on hand, feed. And these particular ones, water and feed, that's something you don't have to have all year round. But, when the hurricane season begins, then your meeting goes into play, and you have these individuals or this group or this entity then can have a register of what you have lost. So it's easy even for the government to hand. And if we have this group, and everyone knows that Vashti had 10 chickens before the hurricane, we have that in this particular organization knows that, this task force, that when the government says, okay, how much did sunflower, that everything is documented, and they don't have to be trying to contact individuals during the hurricane. Because when I was contacted, I was doing therapy, learning to walk. I was evacuated to Tampa, and I spent 3 months till December learning to walk again. So, thank God, Andrew Pinder, he was always in contact with me. He's been very good. Vashti, how you doing? How the animals? And I left someone here on the farm. So he was making sure that we got feed that came here to me. So they were very helpful in that aspect of making sure that that feed was there while I was out of the country. But they can't do everything. But if he had a task force in place on these islands, or even a committee, they can say, okay, this is a sister to assist, where I guess whenever the government can reach, that they can reach this organization that can help a hurricane organization. So we don't have insurances, so that's another thing that us farmers face. We don't have farms insured, so we have risk of fires. Not only hurricanes, you have fires, and nowadays we having tornadoes. So there's something that needs to be looked at going forward. Especially if you're a full-time farmer, that means whatever your resources is depend on whatever you make. So if you lose everything, getting back up is not so easy. Whereas some people farm part-time or backyard farm, so they have a full-time job that can support for them getting back up. So having, even if it's a minimum, that helps in a farm. But, having those things, we don't have those stuff in place as yet either. We don't have an emergency hotline. We should have a vet on call during the hurricanes, because I had a couple of the animals that got injured. I had a goat that got punctured, and the pig got a slice across his mouth. Simple things like that. You have if you have this task force, we have a part of that group, or have available to a vet, or even having medicines on board. Because what happens is that even though each farm is responsible to have these stuff, when you lose stuff on a farm, then who's your sister, or who do you call? Because there's no one there, and persons will say, okay, well, I have this, and this is for my farm. But if we have something that we know that we're obligated, you're a part of this organization, okay, let me call the task force. I need to get these certain things to help my animals during this time. So we don't have that veterinary, especially us here in Abaco. We don't have that hands-on to get that type of assistance like we need.
Before we bring on our final presenter of the day, I'm going to play one more video from our sponsor.
I'm Steve Beshin. I'm from Mobile, Iowa. I'm 48 years old. I'm a hay and sheep farmer, and I want to show you and kind of explain to you what differences we found using liquid EFM for our farm and what it has done for our sheep. Now this pile over here on the left that's treated with liquid EFM, it's a lot greener. Smell is just amazing. And if you come over to this pile over here that hasn't been treated, there's no aroma. And what happens is the sheep, like any livestock, when it smells sweet, they're going to want it. And they do way better on the EFM because they eat it and eat it all. I mean, it's not wasted on the ground. What we have here is a tractor and a tub grinder. And what it's for is you put a round bale of hay in there and you can grind it out, put it on a pile, or put it in a feeder. And what we do in the summer is we grind, because we dry out our ewes, so we grind in these cell feeders. And when we grind into these cell feeders, I've been taking bales from one farm to another, and one that has not been treated with EFM, and the ewes will come up here, smell it, eat a little bit, and walk away. Now these here were just ground for, and this bale has been treated with liquid EFM. They come up, they eat, they're full, they go lay down, and they're content. And the waste is half of what we have with the others. Now this has been ground this morning, and we're about 4 hours into it, and that's 1,500 pounds of hay. They've eaten, as you can see, about a third of it already. They're done, they're content, and they're laying on the ground. with the hay that we had treated with liquid EFM, we were feeding twice as many ewes on the half amount of hay. Because of the nutrient value was so high, they were all content and they stayed in shape during lambing season, plus half of the lick tubs that we had used the previous year on the same amount of hay. With using liquid EFM, we found that our conception rate had come up. Usually we were right around 80%, and we were clear up to 96%. And then when it came to birthing time, everything lambed, milking capabilities was really good. Death loss was minimal, and the scours, we just didn't have much for scours due to the quality of the hay. Well, the quality of the ewes, due to being on liquid EFM, they stayed fluff. We didn't have to use as much grain. They were always bulky, and then when it came lambing time, usually a ewe will do, if you don't have high quality hay, she'll suck down really fast and then she'll quit milking, and then the lamb suffers from that, and they stayed up and in shape all the way through weaning time. Okay, out of 70 ewes, depending on the feed quality and conception rate, we'll get anywhere from a lamb to a lamb and a half. And after we used the liquid EFM, we were pretty close to running a 2 lamb per ewe percentage. So you're right at 200% at weaning time. And it really did, guys. I just firmly believe in this, because what we did, and we tried it, and it really did what it said it was going to do, and the ewes were just content with it.
There you have it. The impacts of lumen minerals and liquid EFM on heads of sheep or small ruminant. I just learned a new terminology today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our final speaker of the day. We had originally planned 4 speakers, but I was advised a few minutes ago that one of them is unable to make it anymore. So that's okay, because our next speaker has so much experience and information that he, I'm sure, will more than make up for what we will not have gotten as a result of the other speaker not being available anymore. Our next speaker is Lavardi DeVoe, and he has been farming livestock and crops for over 50 years. He says his entire career has been that of farmer, husband, father, grandfather, and big brother. He has served as the president of the Bahamas Livestock Agricultural Farmers Association. And he has been farming commercially for more than 50 years. And at different points, he has been the nation's largest hog producer, among the largest sheep and goat producers. And over the years, he's probably grown and sold every type of commercial vegetable and many fruits. And so he is going to be talking primarily about swine production.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Bahamas. But I've been asked to speak on swine production in the Bahamas. I have to stop and pause, because you become emotional sometimes. At one time in the Bahamas, Charlie Papa George Porktail had 200 sows. Henry Burroughs had 200 sows. P.A. Strawn had 200 sows. And Lavardi DeVoe had 350 sows. Today, in 2020, I do not think we have 250 sows in the whole Bahamas. Sows are the mature female pigs. The gilt is a pig that has never had baby before. Before Hurricane Matthew, which destroyed pig production in New Providence, not talking about the rest of the Bahamas, we had a feed problem, moldy feed. 20 tons of corn was brought into the Bahamas, and it was moldy. It was still ground up and converted into feed with the other supplements. It killed most of the sows in New Providence and the other islands. When a former minister said that the swimming pigs in Exuma were dying from sand ingestion and the moldy food, GRAC, which is the government farm on Gladstone Road that produces young ones, young pigs, to sell to farmers. They lost more than 70 of their sows. We haven't replaced those sows yet to get fresh pork, feed behemoths. In the Bahamas, we also, talking about pig farmers, we also try to do all the pig farming in one. We breed this, we grow the sows, we breed the sows, we nurture the young ones, and then we try to fatten the young ones for market. That is 3 types farming in one. Who's breeding a potential Kentucky Derby doesn't take him to the racetrack. He stays on the farm breeding. So we have to go through the nursery period, we have to be the vet, etc., etc. We haven't reached the stage yet where you have farmers who are fattening pigs, taking them from farmers who are bringing them up to 6 weeks, fattening the pigs for the food stores and the wholesalers. We haven't reached that stage yet. My whole thing in farming is that we have to fix the foundation of where we used to be and then build on that. When Mrs. Johnson was talking, I wish I was able to come in and just add to what she was saying, because instead of needing a task force, she needs a few more Andrew Pinder, which is an extension officer. And the extension officer, once he is respected by every department in government, can help you with your veterinarian service, with your permit at immigration, with the bureaucracy at finance, getting something in duty-free for farming, and with your marketing. You might say, I have 2 acres of tomatoes. You just need the fertilizer or the chemicals, take it to market. When the extension officer checks, it might be 2.5 acres of tomatoes. It might be 1.5 acres. He certifies whatever it is, and your credit, your problem is solved. You can continue farming. We have been out of extension officers in the field for more than 10 years. Government now, this is government policy. They're supposed to have an improved breeding science center at GRAC, where farmers who are registered can buy replacement animals to add to their existing herd. You can get a purebred boar, or you can get a half-bred. The farm is there, the workers are there, but the pigs are not there. The feed mill is at GRAC. It was a gift to the country. The farmers do not credit feed from the feed mill, but periodically we are out of feed. And another thing with the feed mill is that the government itself, BAIC, at this time is running the feed mill. BAIC is semi-government. The government itself for the farm, for the swine at GRAC, do not buy feed from the feed mill. They import their feed, which makes it obvious to the farmer that there is some deficiency in the feed that we are paying for at the feed mill. We are supposed to be able to get plants. I'm going off from the pigs a little bit. Plants, mango trees, dilly trees, sour trees, when they are in season, they're supposed to be propagating these at GRAC. We haven't been able to purchase any. I'm not talking about the Hurricane Dorian that is about 10 or 11 months old, that hit mainly Grand Bahama and Abaco. We haven't been able to get any for a very long time. We are not able to purchase replacement pigs. Hotels are closed at this time, which is no problem. I'm not adding it to the foundation. So there is no place to sell your suckling pigs where you get a little more money. The suckling is pigs up to about 60 pounds. The market pigs for cutting up is 60 pounds or over. There is no market for any one of those. Every 2 or 3 weeks, a farmer might be able to sell one pig. So we're going through this period now, feeding hundreds of pigs. That's total. I mean, one farmer has 100. He's finding the money, sourcing the money from somewhere else, but there is no income, nothing to help him during this period. And I'm not talking just about the COVID-19 period. It was before this. It cost $2.25 to produce a pound of pork. When we sell pork on the open market, the most that we are offered, and people should not be offering you something for your pork, but the most you can get is $2. So the farmer is contributing 25 cents for every pound of pork that is consumed locally, local pork that is consumed by its citizens and residents. And the reason for that is that you can buy the fresh shoulder and the fresh arm from in the United States for 30 to 40 cents a pound. Every Monday, whoever brings in fresh fruits, fresh meat, fresh vegetable has to go to agriculture to get a permit, whether it is duty-free or not, bring it in. We need governments, agriculture, to sit down with the farmer, to sit down with the wholesalers, show them what it costs, and the cost to produce a pound of pork, $2.25, that is the cost from government, with them subsidizing the feed and subsidizing the pig that you purchase. Subsidy is involved in that from government. So we need the three parties, all the stakeholders, to have a meeting so we can come at a fair price to sell the pork, and government has to stop issuing permits when there are 50 pigs in the country to be sold on Monday morning. Then if you want your permit to bring in 2 containers of fresh pork, you cannot get it until you buy these 50. Instead of getting a duty-free permission to bring in 2 containers, we will only give you 1 because we have 50 pigs that are available at the market, in the local market. Now, when we use the word local, dealing with pork, fruit, and vegetables, and the sheep and goat, the suggestion being local, the suggestion is it's cheaper. It is not cheaper. It is much more expensive. A bag of food in the United States is $8 or $9. That same bag of food in the Bahamas is $15 to $20. Because we have to pay freight. You have this that is duty-free if you're a registered farmer, and the public think that if it is okayed by government, that it is duty-free. Duty-free to a Bahamian farmer means that you're paying 22%. It is 10% duty plus 12% VAT. The Minister of Finance just included the fisheries, the marine fisheries in that, reduced the duty from 45%. It now would be 10%. Well, it wouldn't be 10%, it would be 22% fishermen, because the duty would be 10%, then VAT would be 12%. We need help from the government, we need help from the consumers, and we as pig producers can feed the Bahamians pork. We can produce the pork. We are not at the stage yet to make ham, bacon, or mutton, because the pig should be 250 pounds up. The Bahamians do not eat big pig. When a Bahamian comes to you to buy a pig, he asks for a small one. He really means small money. He doesn't mean small pig. Only the very rich eat small pig. A small pig can cost up to $9 a pound. And you can go to the food store and get pork for $69, $79 a pound. In addition to government having the pigs and having the staff, they have the use, I don't mean right on the farm now, but government has 6 or 7 vets employed. And we still cannot get breeding animals from government at this stage. Thank you for opening the floor, and I'm willing and able to answer all questions pertaining to pig farming.
We're going to go to questions momentarily, but one more video, and then we will open the floor for questions.
Given the choice, many animals avoid genetically modified feed. I was up in Wisconsin last fall, and I drove up in this Amish man's farm, and this guy was out there in a corn crib, and he had a .22, and he was shooting squirrels. There was a whole bunch of squirrels out there running around, and by the time I got over there, he probably had 3 or 4 squirrels he had harvested. And he was like saying something, man, I can't believe these squirrels eat more corn than my pigs are. And I noticed around the corn crib, there was hundreds of ears of corn that had been completely shucked, eaten by the squirrels. And he says, Marvin, I can come out here every single day and get my limit of squirrels, legal limit of squirrels, and they still keep coming back. Now see, this farmer is an organic farmer. Those squirrels will travel from neighboring farms to eat his corn because they will not eat genetically modified corn if they have a choice to eat organic corn. We see this in animals, goats. We see this in cattle. We see this in hogs. We also see this in crows. I have a farmer in Pennsylvania. He's a certified organic farmer, and he plants his corn in the spring, and he said the biggest challenge he has is keeping the crows away. See, the crows come in, dig up the corn, eat it before it sprouts. He says a lot of times they have to go over that field and replant most of that field in different sections. The crows have just completely annihilated acres of corn that was planted. Now, they don't bother neighbors. They don't bother neighbors at all, okay? But see, another thing you've noticed is that 30, 40 years ago, you saw the crows out in the cornfield, the bean fields, and out in the farms feeding. You will not see crows in the agriculture communities anymore. You see them in the cities. You see them, a large population of crows in the cities. They're scavengers. You'll see them in the dumpsters. You'll see them all over the place. That's where they're finding their food. Here's another one. Mice will avoid genetically modified corn when given the choice. As you can see, here's a bag of organic corn. There's not a single kernel left on those corn cobs. Over here, nice looking corn, isn't it? They didn't even touch it. They didn't even touch it.
So at this point, we're going to open the floor for questions. And the first question is going to come from Margaret Waters. Margaret, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone, please, and ask your question.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to ask this question. Actually, my question may moot point at this time because it was going to be directed to Mr. Pinder, but after listening to Mr. DeVoe, he might have provided the answer. If I may just say also that I'm one of the few, if not the only, female agriculture person from back in the late 70s, early 80s, who worked with the Ministry of Agriculture in the Food Technology and Nutrition Department down in Gladstone Road. So that being said, I want to ask Mr. Pinder, Mr. Pinder, who gave the talk on the swine industry in the Bahamas. Has there been any further development as far as pork products are concerned for local consumption, like ham and bacon and so on?
No, we've actually regressed in terms of swine production. From my perspective, a major challenge for swine producers is access to the market. Mr. DeVoe touched on the issue of pricing. Just similar to the poultry industry, pigs are primarily grown for the loin, the bacon, and the ham, meaning the back legs. And so what you find on the market, you have an excess of fresh shoulders. And so for the food stores and other major users, they would import the fresh shoulders and at almost dumping prices, and they put that on the market, and they're able to sell it, as Mr. DeVoe said, for $1.79. When for the local product, they need somewhere in the range of $2.50 to $2.75 just to make a small profit. So we've actually gone backward in terms of the production, And the major challenge from my perspective is access to the market. Now, what the minister last week, he would have made some pronouncement, some changes in policies that would speak to heads of agreements that the government signed, requiring them to purchase 40% local, making it mandatory for government institutions to purchase 75% of their products locally. And hopefully initiatives like that would help to open up the market. The issue is not one of producing, but being able to sell it. The other issue is food stores are no longer importing whole carcass or even half carcass. They're important portions. And so if you go into a typical food store's butcher shop, they just take out a box with whatever. If they want loins, if they want shoulder, whatever portion they want, that is what they cut. And when the farmers are selling, they're selling a whole carcass. So at some point, as the sector develops, maybe the farmers would consider selling portions as opposed to whole carcass. And when you sell the portions, it comes with a different grade in pricing. So you may get a higher price for your loins compared to selling the whole pig, the whole carcass at just one price.
I agree with Mr. Pinder. We can also sell the cuts, the loins, the pork, the rib. We can do those. We are about 15 years ago, we asked for permission to use the abattoir. We need a freezer down there, and then we'll just need the packaging, and the farmers can be there at 10, 11 in the night, getting their meat cut up into assorted cuts. The blockage is still government. There is only one abattoir in the country.
Okay.
So if you kill your pig in Illustra, you don't need to go through what you go through in Nassau. You kill it in Andros, you don't need to go through it. The vet has to look at the pig before, when it is live, the health inspector when it is killed. And they only kill 3 days out of the week. So we can use those 2 days if we get permission and if a freezer is installed to do the cuts that the stores need. Because only one major superstore, only one major grocery store in the Bahamas buy pork every now and again. I don't think it would be right for me to call, that one name. They don't need any free advertisement, not for buying every now and again. But we are willing and we are able to move on to the next stage. Can I also add something to that? The slaughterhouse building was a gift to the country, built by the RAF military. And the supplies in it was a gift from the money left from Batad in Andros. So we should be able to move forward with something that was given to us after all these years. From 1973 was the implements. After that was put in. The abattoir itself was built in 1945, 1947. We need government assistance to get a fair price for the pork, and we would be moving. And we need government to bring in the sows so the farmers can buy the offspring from them to increase their herd.
Let's move on to the next question from Sherilyn Albury. Sherilyn, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I have a question for Vastia Johnson. What part of Abaco is your farm located?
Okay, sorry. Yes, South Abaco.
South Abaco, what settlement?
Ernestine High. I'm on the highway.
On the highway. Okay, then. Thank you.
Okay.
That is near Cherokee South, near the exit for Cherokee.
Okay. Jenny, your question is next.
Hi. I just wanted to say Mr. DeVoe is really a hero in the agricultural world. He's a wealth of knowledge, both of the history of the failures of us as a people to develop our agriculture and support our farmers, but also his knowledge of the animals and the growing. I just want to say, though, this illustrates this just strange lack of engagement by the ministry over the years. I mean, where in all of this, and maybe Mr. Pinder can answer this, has the ministry not, you know, say this abattoir was built in 1943, for Lord's sakes, has it been upgraded? Why doesn't it have a freezer? I mean, we need Mr. DeVoe there to literally take charge and say, here is a blueprint of what we should be pursuing, and now let's get going with planning it, because it's heartbreaking how many people, and Mr. DeVoe is a huge example of it, have just sacrificed their lives to keep this going and have such knowledge, and then the ministry does not show respect, but then in itself it doesn't do anything to further these complaints, to get rid of them, to help, to be truly the assistance. There's more people in the ministry than there are farmers, actually, than there are animals. Anyway, thank you so much. It's very interesting. Thank you, Mr. DeVoe, for your faithfulness to this farming.
Thank you, Jenny. Anybody want to respond to that?
No.
No?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I would like to to add something, not response to it. There is no personnel in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to carry us all farms forward a little bit. You think about the next generation meeting the same officers in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Because truth, when you run into a roadblock as a farmer that you do not have, the most they can tell you is what is government policy as opposed to trying to help. I don't want to go into any little detail to show them that, to bring out any examples. I have some. If one pushed me, it would come forward.
I'd like to make a comment. I share what Ms. Kinney said, but the challenge for agriculture in the Bahamas is being recognized for what it is. Agriculture, I suggest that agriculture is on the front line of food production and food security. When we look at immigration, we see the importance that they play, and when they hire in the hundreds at a time. The same thing for the police, the same thing for the defense force. But the same initiative is not demonstrated in agriculture. And I'm hoping that one of the things that will come out of what we're experiencing now is an awareness of the importance of agriculture. I've been in agriculture for 30 years. And currently, there's only one other technical officer who came after me. So can you imagine in 30 years, in terms of livestock production, not having another staff in 25, 27 years? And so for us, we're moving along in a fashion similar to the farmers. We're looking for someone to transfer our information, to take the baton and to carry on. But what I would encourage farmers and the general public to do is to help us by agitating, because successive governments respond to masses. And so whatever it is that you would like to see done in agriculture, help us take that message. A challenge that I see coming up is for us, for the farming community, to continue to have access to a Gladstone Road Agriculture Center. In recent years, there have been pushes to take that land and convert it into any number of other activities. And so farmers and the general public may have a cause very soon to show what they think about agriculture and how it needs to be developed, and may be called to make that known in a public way.
Okay. The next question is from Larry Boleg. Mr. Boleg, can you go ahead and unmute your microphone, please, and ask your question?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Malcolm. I have a couple of questions for, I guess, anyone on your panel. The first one is related to like a country strategy. If there is anything specific in terms of percentages, dollar values, time frames, as to when you plan to reduce our dependence on imports. So that's the first question. The second question is relating to something that I heard Ms. Johnson talking passionately about, and it was insurance, the lack of insurance. Was there any consideration given to cooperatives, which could assist in providing insurance over the entire farming sector, agricultural sector? It can reduce the insurance costs. It can reduce feed costs if you're ordering bulk. I don't know. Was any consideration given for cooperatives? Then finally, my last question is about subsidies. What percentage of agricultural products would be considered subsidized, and is that comparable to other jurisdictions? Is it comparable? Are we providing sufficient subsidies? Are we providing too much? I mean, I have no clue. So if you can assist in providing some clarity there, thanks.
I would like to answer the last question first, Ms. Malcolm. The subsidy for farmers and for farming in the country went away during the past 5 to 8 years. At the feed mill, it used to be under Mr. Pinder, and it used to be run effectively and efficiently with 5 members. The abattoir used to be run with 5 members. Fish and Farm, I think their members were up to about 8. About 7 or 8 years ago, it was taken over by BAIC, which is a government corporation. So we now have 25 people at the feed mill when it used to be 5. You have 13 people at the abattoir, which used to be 5. And in addition to that, they hired different staff just to clean the yard. So that is where the subsidy went. And I can go down the line with other things, because I already pointed out that government doesn't even use feed from the feed mill. So the subsidy that used to be available to the farmers, it went away. A gallon of malathion, which is one of the oldest insecticide that you can use, used to cost $30. I think if you can find it now, it is about $70 at Fish and Farm. Fish and Farm is the government place to sell implements and supplies and chemicals, fertilizer. A bale of Pro Mix at Fish and Farm used to be $40. It is now $73 to make up for the payroll for BAIC. You can go to the Fox Hill Nursery and still get a bale of Pro Mix for $40. I'm just letting Mr. Boleg know where the subsidy went. It went into people, and like Mr. Pinder said, in almost 30 years, no technical officers have been hired, just laborers to sit down under some cool trees and in the shade. Thank you. I'll let the technical officer answer the other two questions.
On the issue of cooperatives, we have a department in the Ministry of Agriculture that deals with cooperatives, and cooperatives is one way we encourage farmers to come together to save on purchasing inputs, and collectively they can market their products. But for some reason that whole concept, I don't want to say only farmers, but Bahamians seem to be averse to cooperatives, even though they could see the obvious benefits of it. But that's one way that farmers can help themselves. On the issue of subsidies are available on a number of things: land clearing, import duties, and the likes for inputs. But like Mr. DeVoe was sharing, once they introduce the value-added tax, it changed the whole concept of duty-free. Duty-free before used to be $10. You pay a $10 stamp tax on a shipment, and the duty was waived. Now, when you add the formula they use, they add the shipping cost to the invoice cost, and when you pay 12% on that, it turns out to be anywhere from 20 to 25% of the invoice cost. And so we've been asked to submit a list of inputs for agriculture that would be considered for being VAT-free. And hopefully that, if that is approved, that would take farmers back to where they used to be, where there would be not only a reduction in the duty, it'll be duty-free as well as VAT-free. Now, on the issue of imports, being self-sufficient in food items, I believe that self-sufficiency is a journey and not a destination. If we look at the destination, it could overwhelm us. I think we need to make measurable steps to improve various types of food items, and in time, increase our level of self-sufficiency. And over time, we could get back with particular food items where we can get back to exporting again. But let's look at making measurable steps in increasing our local production. And the public can help a lot with that. A lot of times when we are making a choice on items that we purchase, our final decision is based on the sale price. And like Mr. DeVoe mentioned, in most cases, we cannot compete with foods that are imported strictly on a price basis. But what we have seen in recent times is an awareness of Bahamians for fresh products and safe products. So Bahamians still see locally grown stuff as being safe, and it's a fresh product. And so you see at the farmers market on Gladstone Road and other pop-up markets, you see an increased number of Bahamians going and supporting local farmers. And it's that type of support that will encourage farmers to continue to increase their level of production, because there's no point producing it if you have a challenge selling it. And so the Bahamian public at large can assist in that vein by supporting the local farmers. I mean, if you understand, when you buy local, the money is staying at home versus sending that 90 cents out of every dollar out of the country to import. That money, the more we could produce locally, that money stays in our communities. It supports our local initiatives, and the community is able to develop. It has a multiplier effect. But too often when we're purchasing, we're only basing our purchase on the sale price, but we need to see the bigger picture. And in terms of having initiatives to increase self-sufficiency, one of the challenges we have in the Bahamas with most things is we have political policies and not necessarily national policies. And until we get to the point where we allow the technical people who have the know-how to develop these national policies that will not change, regardless of which party wins the election, then we're gonna keep going up and down, up and down. We have a number of roadmaps that would that outline agendas for increasing in agriculture production, but then one party comes in and then that goes to the side and they start in another direction. So we need to get national policies, not political policies, to increase agriculture and other initiatives in our country.
Right, and I appreciate the comprehensive response. And just one final thing on subsidies. You know, if we look at the I guess world trade and how the WTO and everything was materializing, subsidies is one of those dirty words on the international scene. Although, you know, it's practiced religiously from the developed nations perspective, and it impacts developing nations like ours negatively. So which is why I've asked a question concerning, you know, if there was some gauge on the percentage of our agricultural output that would be subsidized, and if it's comparable to other, say, developed nations, because, you know, like I say, this is how they invade developing countries through, you know, subsidies. They will subsidize their farmers, whether it's on produce, animals, you name it, feed. They subsidize them heavily. And in addition to that, they provide all kinds of barriers for developing nations to import into their territories, whether they be tariffs or quality control or anything of that nature. It is an onerous task to get products into their territories, but there's a dumping type of a philosophy or policy where they can just dump anything of any quality into our jurisdictions, heavily subsidized, that will cause pork to be, you know, sold in our markets for under $2. And these are the kind of things that why I raise the issue of subsidy. And if we are serious about food security, then maybe we need to consider greater subsidies comparable with other jurisdictions.
One of the things that happened in the last few years when the Bahamas was exploring the idea of joining WTO, you know, there was a talk that all the little subsidy we have in terms of controlling imports would have been taken away by joining a WTO. And you're right, the bigger, the industrialized countries, they set up these rules, and then they're not fair. They're designed to create market and opportunities for their products, and they find all type of ways to stop you from getting into their market. But I'm not sure what the official government policy is on joining WTO, but it's something we need to revisit in terms of what impact it's going to have on local production, especially agriculture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question, please, which is Shakara Lightborn. Shakara, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to, it's more of a comment. I just wanted to commend Mr. Andrew Pender and Mr. Lavarity DeVoe. I started my agricultural career at GRAC as a summer student, actually, working at the piggery and working in the small ruminant section. So from those years to now, it really was a stomping ground for me to learn everything I need to know about agriculture in the Bahamas. So from then to now, Mr. Pinder's been doing a really good job, and Mr. Vardy DeVoe, he knows he's one of my favorite farmers, so I commend them for continuing to fight thus far. One of the things I wanted to mention as well about the livestock production that people don't always think about is the biosecurity part of production. And Mr. Pender said that that agriculture should be on the front line. When it comes to food security, it should be on the front line of everything, especially when it relates to diseases. There's a lot of diseases that are transferable from animals to humans. And with having tourism as our major industry, we bring in a lot of people from all over the world, and with them, they bring their diseases, whether they come from their own farms, from wherever they are in the world. And they can possibly come and destroy our whole agricultural industry just by bringing diseases on their clothes and their shoes. So agriculture is not only an isolated industry, it should be connected with tourism as well. We should have reinforced officers at our borders to be able to at least ask people where they're coming from, which countries they're coming from, and we should know beforehand which animal diseases are associated with those countries. For example, if they're coming from Russia and they have a problem with African swine fever or classical swine fever, which is actually transferable to humans as well, we should have this information and this data beforehand before they enter our country. I know we like to be nice and say, oh, we don't want to harass people, but this is very important, especially if we're going to talk about increasing production in the Bahamas, because one outbreak, as you see COVID now, is shutting down the whole world. COVID is an animal-associated disease. And COVID is just one of thousands of other diseases that can be transferred from animals to humans. So we need to build our infrastructure in that way, not only with the production side, but with the animal health and food safety side of things. We need the Ministry of Agriculture needs enforcement in that area. They need professionals in that area. And like Mr. Pinder said, private sector and the general public can advocate for these things to actually happen, and not, just sit back and say the government, but we need to agitate as common folk that these things need to be in place.
Okay, thank you, Shakara. We're going to go next to our next question, which is Galaxy A20S. Can you go ahead and unmute your microphone, please? Galaxy A20S.
Yeah, pleasant good afternoon, Michelle. Mark
Hey,
Paul
Mark.
here. I just want to continue to congratulate you on having this webinar program going on. And I'm just hoping and anticipating that this particular program will pretty much continue to go on for a very long time. I think you personally are actually onto something. And I know it calls for a great deal of research and making the calls and all the type of stuff in order to make this type of thing happen. Person like Shakara as well, I think pretty much is on point. And Mr. Andrew Pender, we really and truly have got to find a way and means of pretty much with the skills that these persons like him have to really get it out there. And Mr. Lavardi may not know me now, but my mom was taking care of his kids back in the day, a very long time ago. So I know Mr. Lavardi very well. And these are the type of person that we really and truly need to bring forth. And this particular program that you personally have, Michelle, we've got to find a way and mean for you, for us to pretty much get this program out. Because here it is. We pretty much look at just the government to actually get it done. It's not going to happen. Politics is a serious thing. All right. So the point is pretty much I was really focusing more on you to commend you on what you're doing. And I want to see us try to push this particular program, you as a facilitator, in terms of getting the message out, even if it means that I have got to find some way and means to assist you in terms of getting some of that message out so we can get this information out. Strength, personally, to me, is in numbers. Simple persons and that type of stuff, we pretty much are not going to hear them from that particular stance. You've set a platform in which you've been able to attract a considerable amount of persons to this particular webinar, and we've got to find a way it means to continue for this to particularly really happen. And I just want to congratulate you, Mr. Shakara and Mr. Pinder and Mr. Lavardi. Kudos to you guys, man.
Well, Mac, you
Thanks.
preempted. Thank you, Mac. You preempted what I was going to do at the end of the webinar, and that is to announce that the webinars will continue. I have partnered with several persons who are very active in the agriculture sector to refine these webinars, make them look more professional, add more segments. We're working on that as we speak. I was going to announce it at the end, but since you preempted me, and towards that end, I know that several of you who have been participating in these webinars week after week have businesses that have products that farmers and backyard gardeners can use. So if you're interested in sponsoring that webinar as a means to promote what it is that you do or what you offer, we are going to be open to sponsorships as well. And so you can email me. I put the information in the chat, but I will go ahead and say what the email address is: livingyoungevity@gmail.com. Put it in the chat, livingyoungevity@gmail.com, if you're interested in sponsoring these webinars going forward as a means to promote your product. But I was going to announce that at the end, but since Mac preempted it, thank you, Mac, for your kind words. I really appreciate it. So are there any other questions? Camilla, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
I'm a homeowner in Eleuthera and just in the process of starting a small home garden, and I would like access to one of those kits. So I'll look for that information. But I also wanted to have a few laying hens. I've never tried this before, and so I wanted to know if there was any training, Mr. Pinder, and a template that you can, a coop of what to build to house the laying hens in your backyard. And also a program as to how often to feed them, etc., for someone who has totally no experience. Thank you.
One of the programs that will be rolling out in another couple of weeks is the distribution of 15,000 layer chicks. Regrettably, we're focusing on existing farmers in the first instance. And as a part of that, we will be producing some flyers, distributing flyers on how to manage layer chicks and laying birds. Also, we would be putting out some information on how you could make what is called a battery cage. Basically, it's made out of wire, and it can be elevated, and something that you could keep around your home and don't accumulate the waste and odor that would come from a traditional type of housing where the birds are on the ground. So you can listen up to get some more information on that in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you
very much.
All right, Chris Embry, you're up with your question. Please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for what you're doing with this. I appreciate what's been shared. One of the things that was mentioned that is a concern to me, the thought that we can't wait on the government is obvious, is something that I don't think we really understand how crucial it is that we have subsidy and government help with this. There is no way to compete with America for prices of livestock and lots of products if we're not going to, when it comes to the end result, it's got to be worth it financially to do what we're doing. We love farming. We enjoy farming. We think it's a blessing to be a part of, but it's got to pay to obviously be sustainable. And I think the government, I think this is an exciting time in one sense, because I think that the government is closer now than ever to realizing we need to do this. We need to be able to grow food in this country to sustain this country.
Raquel Pinder, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the speakers. I actually work in the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources, and I just wanted to provide some clarity to the issue of subsidies. The government does provide subsidies to the agricultural sector. One of the biggest subsidies we provide is the subsidy on feed. I also wanted to indicate that all countries provide subsidies. There are subsidies that are permitted and there are subsidies that are not permitted. So we have looked at the subsidies we provide to the agricultural sector, and the government is aware that the agricultural sector in the Bahamas is not well subsidized. But this goes back to the issue that Andrew made, that you have to take a long-term view of food security. And the reason that countries like the United States are heavy subsidizers is that they have a very long-term view of agriculture and their need to feed their population. So despite the fact that only about 3% of the US population is involved in agriculture, similar to us, their subsidies far exceed the proportion of their population that actually work in agriculture. The same thing is for the European Union. So Mr. DeVoe talked about the change in policies and the disenfranchisement of the agricultural sector. I think we're only going to make progress if we take a long-term view of the sector. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. I guess the big question is, how do we make that happen? Is this opportunity that's been presented by COVID-19, will this be wasted? And by that I mean, yes, everybody's now thinking about food security and what we need to do to improve the sector. What happens when the crisis is over? Do we go back to where we were before? How do we ensure that that does not happen? That's the question that I'm trying to ask. And I don't know if anybody here on the panel or listening in can answer that, or if that is above everybody's pay grade here. But I think that's the real question. How do we ensure that we don't go back to what we were doing before once the crisis is passed? Because I believe that that is a real danger. I don't know if anybody wants to tackle that, or should I just move on to the next question?
No, I think that at the essence of it, the issue of food security has to be a nonpartisan issue, like it is in other countries where no matter what happens, countries like Indonesia and Thailand, they have reserves of rice. They take a long-term view that the population needs to be fed, and there's some costs that the government is going to incur, irrespective of whether the harvest is good or the harvest is bad. So it really comes down to individuals telling the government that, there has to be a certain amount of food produced in this country, and farmers have to be seen as the source of that production. And politicians tend to listen to their constituents.
Well, at least every 5 years. I hate to sound so cynical, but it is what it is. I mean, come on. But I appreciate your sentiments. Jenny, you had something to add to that?
Well, again, that's a very pertinent question. How do we get from where we are now and not fall back to where we were and go forward? And, I listened to Mr. DeVoe and I listened to Mr. Pinder and Mrs. Pinder. There is a wealth of information and knowledge, working knowledge. Surely these people should be forming that core group who then would start to craft this policy, this national policy, bringing real-time focus on the problems and also the solutions that they think would work, rather than just us agitating. We could agitate, but it would be great to know that we also then are pushing behind a crew of people who are able and designing something for our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
I think during this time it'd be good to plant some seeds. And a good seed I think we could plant is to get some young people involved in agriculture and within the ministry or department of agriculture. We have a wealth of talent out there, but no disrespect to the young people, they're not so much into the service but the pay. And regrettably, the pay in the public service is not the most attractive thing to get them to come in. And so maybe we need to look at other ways of getting them to participate, if not on a long-term career plan, maybe on a contractual basis to come in and assist in developing this plan, because I'm convinced the young people are out there who can help to move agriculture forward. We just need to find a creative way to engage them in the process. And we plant that seed now. It'll continue to grow after COVID-19, and we'll be on our way to that journey.
All right. Thank you so much. Cloridane, I got it right, I think. Cloridane Claire, your question is next. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good evening to everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show, Michelle. This is for Mr. Andrew Pinder and anyone else who can probably assist with this question. Due to the closure of many meat-producing companies in the United States, what is being done to assist the local livestock farmers to meet the demand of supplying our country with meat and dairy products?
All right, we're not in the dairy business at this time. We don't think it's profitable to get involved with dairy. But what we encourage farmers to do is to come together in their cooperative, their associations, so that it wouldn't be a government. They're waiting on the government to do something. They can come together to assist, to increase their level of productivity, that they'll be able to address some of the concerns about the availability of meat and meat products in the near future. Another item that was in the press release just in the week past was an initiative from the Bahamas Development Bank, where they're looking to provide funding for the broiler industry. And so now is a good time if you're interested in getting in agriculture, looking to expand agriculture. Funding is available now as never before through the Small Business Development Center, as well as through the Bahamas Development Bank for specific projects. So if that's what you're interested, I would suggest you contact those entities and see how they can assist you in moving forward your projects in agriculture.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mac, you're up.
I think they've got to make it a little easier for these cooperatives to actually get registered if that is the way that they're looking at. Okay. Now, I would also like to say, Michelle, at the end, at the same time, you've stumbled onto something great right now, which is facilitating this particular program. And in order for a lot of things to happen right now, we have to utilize you, okay, in terms of making it happen. However, we sit down and try to get that done. That's what we need to do. I live in the community of Stapleton Gardens. The community of Stapleton Gardens has been involved in a number of programs. And when I say a number of programs, there are a lot of things that the community of Stapleton Gardens are into. And Backyard Garden just happens to be one of them as well. Okay, and we have never stopped doing what we needed to do or what we wanted to do in respect to one community, which is the community of Stapleton Gardens. And gardening is another thing that we're taking extremely serious. Like I've said a few weeks ago, the community of Stapleton Garden may probably held the first pop-up market, and I've actually held 2 of those so far, and we're looking at probably holding another one pretty much by the end of the year because of the response. Imagine every single community getting involved in that. Livestock, imagine getting a community, every single community, to actually have a community farm and complemented by a backyard garden. All right? I think in order for those things to happen right now, Michelle, we've got to be able to assist you in terms of facilitating this, in terms of getting that information out. And I think you've done an excellent job, and you personally deserve to take this thing to another level.
Chris is back. Okay, Chris, let's hope we can get you to stay up this time. So go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question, please.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna try to do without the video this time. I think that wasn't working out for me, but thank you. And so what I was gonna mention was that we ran out of masks because of the world demand for masks. Thankfully, we didn't run out of meat that they were able to send us or other products. And I think it's encouraging that the government is realizing the importance of what you're talking about with this food security. And so, you know, I guess I'd like to see, you know, somehow or another, I don't know how to do it, but to encourage, you know, those that are in these offices, those that are, you know, maybe Mr. Pintard himself, that, you know, there needs to be a bigger look at this. If we want food security, you know, I think the reality is it's going to cost the government. It's not going to be, we either need to have the luxury of allowing some other country to supply our food needs, and then face the reality that if somehow or another there's a shortage, we just don't get the foods we'd like, or maybe the foods, you know, to much of a degree at all. And obviously that's not a price that any government should be willing to pay. So the option is, you know, bring in some subsidies that could make it more worthwhile for the farmer, or to go back to, as somebody mentioned, to maybe not be a part of this world trade thing, that our prices are controlled, and be able to have import duties on some of this, because it's just so difficult to compete with the prices, you know, that you have in America. And but what's exciting is it does seem like the government wants some of this, but to say you want it, and to implement policies and personnel that can kind of make things easier. I do want to say, you know, Andrew, wow, to think what Andrew Pender shoulders. We need several more Andrew Penders to, you know, spread the workload and to, you know, and provide some enthusiasm. I've got 7 boys. I've got 13 children, 7 of which are boys, that all like to be involved with farming. But there's got to be a future in it. As much as we like it, you know, it's got to be something that pays to be sustainable. So, you know, working to find a way that the government could help make it something that's truly profitable. When it comes right down to it, people will do what pays.
Pericles, the floor is yours.
Yes, Michelle, I'm sorry I joined you late, and thank everybody. Very interesting. What I wanted to say is that some of the things that have been raised today, we may hear a lot more about in the coming weeks, with the budget debate and so forth. But we really need our government, which I believe is coming, to say once and for all that we are not going to accede to the World Trade Organization. We're going to go our own way for right now. Seems right, with it falling apart anyway between the big boys. Secondly, we can't afford to lose the initiative. Even if they get the vaccine and they cure this present COVID pandemic, everybody's mind needs to think dirty and with vision and foresight as to what else could be coming. If you got a war between the big powers and they start spreading germ warfare, we're going to have multiple pandemics at one time, and shortages and so forth. So we need to be moving towards a time when we can live as a nation and as a people, even at a reduced level. But we really need to achieve what we call food security. Cooperatives have been talked about. I guess I must be the oldest man on the screen. Back in the time of independence, cooperatives were our dreams, and lots of Bahamian trade unionists and others got sent off to Cyprus and other countries where cooperatives were big. And at one time, I think we had over 100 going, the fishing cooperatives, farming cooperatives. A lot of them failed because of stealing. And one of the things that, besides predial larceny and stealing from farmers, from boats, from fishermen, and so forth, we're going to need to put in place ferocious laws so that if people entrust their money, just like ASUs are now failing in our culture because you can no longer be sure your friends are going to pay up. Well, the co-ops, you can't have a co-op and everybody contributing and so forth, and then someone steals it, and then they're not prosecuted because they family or cousin or church or lodge or whatever. And that's in the equation. The other thing, listening to the pork farmers, there are two huge stories in the history of pork production that I know about as a lawyer, and it's too long to go into it now. But what has always been missing, the two who tried failed, and a lot of that was because of debt. The one coincided with the Gumboro live vaccine that destroyed Gladstone Farm and the other chicken farms at the time. The other one involved some political intermeddling, but nobody has successfully come with enough capital, nor have the big farmers, including Lavarity and Mr. Burroughs and all the others, pool their resources to make a proper pork processing facility where the animals are killed, and you're not just selling fresh pork, you're selling ham and bacon and other finished products, and you're getting high end. Unless we can keep in place duty protections, you pork farmers are going to live forever with the curse that the poultry farmers also face. In the States, the nice ribs that you buy in every restaurant from here to Alaska, and the prime backstrap cuts, the loins, the finest hams, they get sold for a lot of money in the States. And then the rest of the cuts are dumped. And the same with chicken, the pretty chicken breasts and the buffalo wings, they fetch a lot of money, and the cheaper cuts get dumped, and they all start south, 50, 60, 100 trailers at a time, and they're sold on the road. And the ones that aren't sold get to Jacksonville, and they get dumped for 30, 40, 50 cents on the pound. And even with 200% duty, we can't always match that. And the other thing, and then I'll quit, is that we need patriotism. If you know the history, the economic history of the United States, that is how they built their economy. When the first time they made a tweed factory, nobody would dare to go in Congress if he wasn't wearing American cloth. And each stage of their history, as soon as something started getting made at home, they supported it. We don't, and we need to. Those are just men sitting into this equation, but we heard the whole story of pork history. There's been a lot of disunity, a lot of jealousy, a lot of failure to work together, and as a result, there's nowhere you can process your pork and have a big enough inventory to where you can supply the restaurants with just the ribs if that's what they want, and so forth and so on. And it was going to happen twice, and it failed twice. That might be subject of another lecture some other time. But carry on, Michelle. This is a good program.
Pericles, you hit a lot of nails on the head. I couldn't have added anything to what you said. You're absolutely right. And patriotism has a lot to do with it. So this is a lot of food for thought for us to all think about the way forward and how we are going to address all of the issues that were raised here today. I'm just a journalist. And like I said, I just started these webinars to just, find a way for us to start talking about these things. And Now that I know that there's an appetite for it, I'm certainly going to make myself available to continue them. And so you will be hearing more via email in the coming week about the way forward as it relates to these webinars. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on, Pericles and everyone, really. Pericles said, you know, he mentioned about warfare and the fact that this won't be the last pandemic. And we all know that to be the case. But I want you all to know that your best defense against COVID-19 or any other virus or any other chronic illness is a strong immune system. And that is what longevity is all about, strengthening your body, giving your body the raw materials that it needs to function the way God designed it to function. That's why it's so important for us to replenish the earth with minerals, because that means that the food that comes from that earth will be mineral rich. And once we consume it, that means that we will be getting what our bodies need to function. 90 nutrients. That's your best defense against COVID-19 or any other pandemic. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. That's it. You give your body the raw material it needs, and I'm telling you, you will not have to worry about COVID-19 or diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or high blood pressure, or all these other ailments that are plaguing this country. We are one of the sickest nations in the world. And I am a part of a group of crusaders who are trying to spread the message that you can heal and be healed through nutrition. As always, as a way of saying thank you for being a part of these webinars, I'm going to offer a free health evaluation to everyone who has participated. I'm going to put the link in the email address, in the email that I send out, and I encourage you to please take that health assessment survey. It's free, just to see what your health score is, to see whether or not you have any mineral deficiencies, because it's an easy fix. We have a lot of people in this country who are dying unnecessarily, and all they need, well, a major part of what they need is nutrition, because another problem we have are so many environmental toxins, but that's another show. But if you give your body what it needs, you will be able to reverse illness. I'm not talking managing conditions, I'm talking reversing illness. And that is what longevity is all about. So I want to say thank you once again to everyone who has participated in this webinar and all of the webinars that we've been having over the past 5 weeks. And look out for your email. By end of day, probably by tomorrow, I'm going to send an email to all of the registrants with the edited version of today's webinar, as well as links to the ones that have gone prior to today, as well as contacts for all of our presenters, not just from today, but from the previous ones as well. And okay, I see somebody. Okay, I'll reach out to you, Natalia. So yeah, this is going to do it for now, but we will continue beyond today, and we're looking for it to be bigger and better and more professionally produced and improved. And I would love for you all to continue to tune in, and we're going to be sending out information within this week about how to do that. Once again, for more information about longevity, about how you can become healthier through nutrition, about bloom and minerals, about anything to do with health and nutrition, I'm Miguel. I'm actually in the process of becoming a certified holistic health coach because I'm very, very passionate about this. And so you can email me at livingyoungevity@gmail.com. I will go ahead and type it in the chat once more, livingyoungevity@gmail.com, and I will be able to answer any questions you may have, livingyoungevity@gmail.com. All right, and I'm also going to, like I said in that email, send you a link where you can get the free health assessment survey so you could know where you are at and what you need to do to ensure that you don't have a mineral deficiency. Last thing, 900 diseases are a result of nutritional deficiencies. 900 diseases. And we need to get away from managing illness to having our people walk in perfect health. So that's going to do it for today. At 6:26, guys. This is the longest one we've done so far. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And look out for an email, like I said, by end of day tomorrow. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone.